Imagine this. You're walking through your city when the ground rumbles, the lights flicker, and suddenly whole skyscrapers lift into the air. Meanwhile, people you know begin to develop powers. Some can harness lightning, others can heal wounds, or even return from death. The world feels familiar, but something has changed forever. That's the world of Valorant. And today, we're going to uncover the lore that makes Riot Shooter more than just gunfights and strategies. I'm your host, Elisa, and welcome to episode 3. Now that you've pictured a city turned upside down by mysterious energy, here's what you really need to know. This all started with a single world-changing event called First Light. Without First Light, there's no Radianite, no Radiance, and no Valorant Protocol. So let's rewind and start there. Valorant takes place in a near-future version of Earth, but the timeline is permanently divided into before and after First Light. First Light wasn't just a blackout or a natural disaster. Across the globe, cities experience flashes of energy, unexplained power surges, and rifts that no scientist could explain. In its wake, humanity discovered a new resource, Radianite. Now, Radianite looked like salvation. Clean energy, nearly limitless potential, capable of replacing fossil fuels and fueling the next industrial revolution. But corporations rushed to mine it, the government scrambled to regulate it, and society bent around its possibilities. Here's the catch, though. Radianite didn't just change technology, it changed people. Some individuals exposed to Radianite developed extraordinary abilities. They could bend elements, manipulate energy, or reshape life itself. These people became known as Radiants. And this really set the stage for conflict. How do you govern a world where not only the fuel, but the very people themselves are unpredictable and powerful? So now that we know First Light gave us Radiance and Radianite, here's the next crucial piece. If unchecked, this power could destabilize the entire world. And that's why the Valorant Protocol was born. And its creation is a story of secrecy, survival, and leadership. Think of the Valorant Protocol as a mix between a global peacekeeping force and a shadow organization. It wasn't a government project, it was independent, international, and highly selective. The first two leaders, Viper and Brimstone. Brimstone is the soldier's soldier. He's the one who believes in honor and keeping the team alive. Viper, on the other hand, is more ruthless, more pragmatic, and sees survival as worth at any cost. And together, they began recruiting. They weren't looking only for Radiants. They wanted scientists, engineers, tacticians, and skilled operatives who could use Radianite in battle. That's why you see such variety in the roster, from Killjoy, the German prodigy who designs cutting-edge tech, to Omen, a man shrouded in mystery, possibly transformed by Radianite experiments gone wrong. Each agent brings more than just weapons, they bring philosophies. Sage believes in balance and healing. Phoenix trusts his own fiery bravado, and characters like Jet bring speed, agility, and a certain recklessness. The Protocol's mission? To stop Radiant-related disasters before they spiral out of control. But soon, they realize their greatest enemy might not even be on this earth. So now that we've got the Protocol on the board, here's where Valorant lore really flips the script. The threat isn't just Radiance or rogue scientists, it's another version of Earth entirely. And yes, that means agents facing off against themselves. One of Valorant's boldest moves is introducing the idea of parallel Earths. The world we play in is called Alpha Earth, but across dimensions lies Omega Earth, a reflection of ours with key differences. On Omega Earth, Radianite is scarcer, survival is harder, and the people there are willing to do just about anything to secure their future, even if that means invading Alpha Earth. This is why in-game you sometimes see agents fighting mirror versions of themselves. It's not just a mechanic, it's lore. Omega Earth has its own protocol, its own agents, and they're not villains in their own eyes. To them, they're saving the world. The conflict between Alpha and Omega comes to life in Valorant cinematics. Remember the Venice incident? In the Duelist cinematic, Phoenix tries to stop Jet from detonating a spike in Venice. When it explodes, reality itself is warped. Buildings float, and Venice is transformed into the map Ascent. These spikes aren't just bombs, they're Radianite charged devices capable of rewriting physical laws, and each battle over them raises the stakes between Alpha and Omega Earth. And real quickly, we are going to dive into the Duelist cinematic so you guys can kind of gain a little bit of knowledge and perspective of what I'm kind of going into about.
Phoenix, please tell me you have the package.
I would if somebody was a little less aggressive. Hey, stop! I said stop! Oh, that's how you want to play it. Ah!
You cannot let her plant.
All right, I'm going in.
What about the hostile?
I wouldn't worry about her.
Are you certain?
100. I got this.
미안해서 어쩌나?
Hey, Control. So, about the package.
All right, so as you can see towards the end of the cinematic, we see that Venice is transformed. So buildings are floating, and that is when it transforms into one of their maps called Ascent. And like I said, these spikes aren't just bombs, they're Radianite charged devices capable of rewriting physical laws. So that was what Jet was carrying as Phoenix was trying to chase her down. And each battle over them raises the stakes between Alpha and Omega Earth. So now that we know the fight spans across two Earths and reality itself can be reshaped, let's zoom in on what makes Valorant truly engaging: the agents. Their stories, their rivalries, and their relationships give heart to the high concept sci-fi. Every Valorant agent has a backstory, and while some are still mysterious, we know enough to see the bigger picture. Phoenix from London is brash, hot-headed, and literally on fire. He was our first glimpse into the world's chaos. Jet, agile and cocky, represents the new generation. Fast, sharp, and not always following the rules. Neon from the Philippines can channel bioelectric energy. She's directly tied to the technology bridging Alpha and Omega Earths, making her more central to the lore than most realize. Clove, who is one of the newest agents, has a haunting gift. They can return from death itself, raising deep questions about mortality and the cost of Radianite exposure. Sage, from China, is a healer and mentor, but her story also explores what it means to carry responsibility for others' lives. We also saw a glimpse of her in the cinematic as well, talking to Phoenix. And of course, Raze and Killjoy, two fan favorites whose confirmed romance adds heart and representation to the story, proving that Valorant is as much about human connection as it is about cosmic stakes. Even Omen, a man made of shadows, whispers about his lost humanity, hinting at experiments gone wrong. Every line of dialogue, every voice interaction between agents adds another piece to the puzzle. So now that we've seen how agents bring personality and humanity into this world, here's the final point. Valorant isn't finished telling its story. The real mystery, the why behind First Light, the truth of the multiverse is still unfolding. So, Valorant's lore is still being revealed, piece by piece, but what we already know paints a picture of a universe about more than shooting mechanics. It's about power and responsibility, who controls Radianite, it's about identity and survival, how do Radiants fit into a fearful society, and it's about parallel worlds colliding, forcing us to ask, what would we do to save our own Earth, even if it meant destroying another? And that's what makes Valorant special. Every match is a battle in a much bigger war, and every agent carries stories that hint at a reality far stranger than we imagine. Now, every match in Valorant starts the same way. A group of agents drop into a battlefield, each with their own abilities. But what if I told you these agents aren't just game mechanics? They're part of a much bigger story. From fiery heroes to tragic shadows, and even star-crossed lovers, we'll be exploring the backstories of Valorant agents and how their personal struggle shapes the universe. Now that we know Valorant agents aren't just soldiers, but characters with layered history, here's why you need to stick around. Their stories give us clues to the bigger mysteries of the Valorant world. So let's start where it all began, the Protocol's founding members. The Valorant Protocol was built on the shoulders of a few key leaders. Brimstone, who is often called the heart of the team. He's ex-military, disciplined, and brings a sense of honor and duty to the protocol. His tactical brilliance and loyalty are what hold the squad together. He's the classic leader archetype, but with real weight. Brimstone feels like the dad of the team, trying to guide younger, more reckless agents. Viper, on the other hand, couldn't be more different. She is a scientist by training, and she uses toxins and chemicals as weapons. Her demeanor is very cold, calculated, and she's not afraid of morally gray solutions. Her story hints at deep personal loss, which may explain why she comes off as ruthless and even bitter. Together, though, Brimstone and Viper show us the balance of Valorant. Heart versus mind, honor versus pragmatism. Then there's Omen. Omen is perhaps the most mysterious agent. He's barely human, existing as a shadowy figure with fragmented memories. His lines often hint at a tortured past, experiments gone wrong, lost connections, maybe even betrayal. Omen's story connects directly to the dangers of Radianite experimentation, and he's living proof of what happens when science pushes too far. And finally, Killjoy, the brilliant German inventor. She represents the technological backbone of the protocol, designing gadgets and weapons that allow non-radiant agents to hold their own against superpowered foes. Killjoy also grounds the story in a younger, more modern energy. She's confident, playful, and yes, she also brings love into the picture, as we'll see later. So, I'm gonna give you guys a little this is a little cinematic, kind of goes into Viper a little bit. Now, we don't really see much from the cinematic, but it kind of gives way as to what her demeanor is and kind of the way she is as a person. Very cold-hearted, very particular. Remember, she's a scientist again. It's a little bit of Viper, just because of copyright reasons. I'll just kind of go through this a little bit quicker. There's Brimstone and Sage. You see, he's kind of like leading the way. Another character that's there, Chamber. You see Phoenix again. little bit of a glimpse into him as well. So, now that we know who built the foundation of the Valorant Protocol, here's the next big step. How the new generation of agents, duelist heroes like Phoenix and Jet, bring action and personality into the mix while also pushing the lore forward. If Brimstone, Viper, and Killjoy set up the protocol, then Phoenix and Jet lit the fire that caught the world's attention. And we kind of went into Phoenix, Jet, and Sage's characters, but I'm going to expand on them a little bit. So, of course, we have Phoenix from London. He was one of the first agents Riot showcased. His confidence, his humor, and his fiery abilities made him the perfect poster child for Valorant's flashy gameplay. But lore-wise, Phoenix is often at the center of big events, including the Venice incident. His battles with mirror agents highlight just how personal the Alpha versus Omega conflict can get. Jet from South Korea is fast, reckless, and cocky. Her rivalry with Phoenix makes her instantly memorable, and her involvement in the Venice fight cemented her as one of Valorant's main characters. Underneath her attitude, though, Jet is one of the most loyal teammates. Her story explores the clash between youthful arrogance and genuine responsibility. Sage from China stands apart from Phoenix and Jet. She's a healer, calm and wise, and often plays the role of moral compass, as we explored before. Her interactions with other agents show her as both mentor and protector. Sage represents balance, not just in the gameplay, but in the lore, where she often questions the protocol's decisions. Together, these three embody the different sides of Valorant's new recruits: fiery, reckless, and grounded. They show us how personality clashes add drama within the team beyond just their battles against Omega Earth. Now that we've met the early recruits, let's dig into something that makes Valorant stand out in gaming: how Riot weaves in personal struggles, cultural roots, and even love stories into its cast of agents. One of the most striking things about Valorant is how diverse the cast is, not just in their abilities, but in their cultures and personal stories. Neon from the Philippines channels bioelectric energy, running at superhuman speed. She represents not only the cutting-edge science of the protocol, but also Riot's commitment to showcasing global characters. Neon's backstory ties her directly to the experiments in bridging Alpha and Omega Earth, making her very crucial to the ongoing lore. Clove from Scotland is one of the newer agents. Their radiant power allows them to return from death, even lingering as a ghostly presence to help their team. That ability raises fascinating questions. What does immortality cost? How many times can someone cheat death before losing themselves? Clove's story feels like it will become more important as Riot reveals the darker side of Radiant power. Raze and Killjoy bring something different: love. Riot confirmed their relationship, making them the game's first openly queer couple. Raze is explosive and creative, while Killjoy is methodical and analytical. Their bond isn't just fan service. It really reflects how Valorant balances destruction and creation and chaos and order. Omen, meanwhile, gives us tragedy. He constantly hints that he doesn't remember his old self, but he remembers enough to feel pain. His lines like, "I feel the strain," "block it out," "Omen, block it out," remind us that Radiant power and Radianite experimentation come at a cost. And just to give you guys a little bit of insight, we're going to take a look at the character Omen. And here we have Omen, the man of mystery.
Sova, I think you will like this.
What I like is for you to hurry.
He's very, he has a broody demeanor.
To see you again. Tell me about Shrouded Step.
Straight to the point. Always was your style, Ghost. Imagine our surprise when we realized who you were. And that you became one of them. No!
Scatter. That's what he says in the game. So that's Omen. I really love how Valorant cinematics, like, they tie so much into the lore, and I love that they like animate it exactly how they are in the game as well. So now that we've seen how these agents bring heart, conflict, and even love into Valorant, here's the next big question. What do their stories tell us about the future of the universe and where Riot might take the lore next? When you look at the cast of agents, patterns emerge. The founding members show us the protocol's roots. The duelists bring us the flashy conflicts that keep the story moving, and the newest agents hint at where the lore is going next. Neon shows us that the war between Alpha and Omega is escalating and that technology will play a central role. Clove shows us that life and death might not be as final as we thought. And Killjoy and Raze remind us that in the middle of world-shaking battles, human connection still matters. Each new agent doesn't just add new gameplay mechanics, they add new pieces of the puzzle. And if Riot continues to tie them into larger events, the full picture of First Light, Radianite, and the multiverse will only get more intriguing. So, what do we really learn from the agents? That Valorant isn't just a game about heroes with flashy powers or mechanics that win rounds. It's about people. People shaped by their cultures, their tragedies, their science, and their relationships. Phoenix isn't just fire and swagger. He's a young man thrown into a conflict bigger than himself, trying to balance ego with responsibility. Jet isn't just agility and blades. She's a fighter, carrying the weight of loyalty and pride. Sage isn't only a healer. She's a moral compass, questioning whether the protocol's decisions are always right. Omen, broken and shrouded in shadow, is a living reminder of what unchecked experimentation can cost. Each agent adds a new layer of mystery, but more importantly, they make the world feel alive. Their rivalries, friendships, and even romances remind us that this is a universe built on human connection just as much as high-stakes battles. The agents are the heart of Valorant. Without them, there's no protocol to believe in, no lore to follow, and honestly, no reason to care who wins or loses around. They transform what could just be a tactical shooter into a story of identity, survival, and choice. They remind us that behind every duel, behind every spike, planted or diffused, there's a story worth telling. One that reflects not just their world, but maybe even ours. In our next episode, we'll dive headfirst into the battle between Alpha and Omega Earths, the multiverse war at the very core of Valorant's story. This isn't just background flavor. It's the conflicts that explains why the agents fight, why the protocol exists, and why every match feels like a mirror. We'll revisit the Venice incident, the moment when Phoenix faced off against Omega Jet and a single spike detonation tore an entire city from the ground. That one event didn't just create the map we know now as Ascent, it proved that the multiverse war could rewrite reality itself. And if it happened once, what's to stop it from happening again, or even on a larger scale? We'll also break down the true purpose of the spike. To some, it's just a weapon, a Radianite bomb. But in truth, it's so much more. It's a device that can reshape energy, bend matter, and possibly tip the balance of survival between worlds. The spike isn't just a gameplay mechanic. It's the beating heart of Valorant's story. And here's where things really get exciting. The what-ifs. What if Alpha Earth loses? What if the agents we've come to see as heroes become the desperate invaders, forced to raid another Earth for survival? What if Omega Earth isn't the villain we think they are, but rather a desperate reflection, fighting for their people the same way Alpha is fighting for theirs? We'll also ask the bigger question: what if neither side wins? Could the agent's choices open the door to alternate endings, branching paths where some worlds are destroyed, others merge, or perhaps an entirely new threat emerges? Imagine a future where Phoenix fights alongside his Omega double, or where Killjoy and Raze must choose between love and loyalty to the Earth. These scenarios aren't just wild speculation either. Riot has built Valorant's lore in a way that leaves room for multiple outcomes, alternate endings, and narrative twists we haven't even begun to see. So, next time we'll step into the heart of Valorant's multiverse war, piecing together the clues from cinematics, maps, and voice lines to imagine what's really at stake. And we'll ask the question that might define not just Valorant's lore, but the future of the game itself. Not just who will win, but what kind of ending is even possible. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode 3. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you like this type of content, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And let me know what other kind of video games you guys would like to see me talk about. Thank you so much.